Good afternoon, Christian woman, Christian woman. I hope this message finds you well today. I was talking to a colleague the other day about boundaries because this is something that typically comes up. And it reminded me of, and I was not eavesdropping, I tell you, some people just tend to talk quite loud. I was in a building and I heard the elevator open up as I was getting into another door, and I heard this woman crying. And she said to her boyfriend, or whomever he was to her, we'll just assume for the sake of this example that he was a boyfriend. And she said, crying, "You haven't hugged me today. You haven't hugged me." And he yelled back at her, "I hugged you 20 minutes ago." And I said to myself, my God, how did they get here? That just didn't happen overnight. And when I think about boundaries, I think about all the times, over the years, whether I'm talking to a young man or a young woman, or I'm working with a family or a couple, that boundaries show up really early. They really do. If you are paying attention, they show up very early. You may have heard of yellow flags and red flags. Yellow flags are not as pronounced as a red flag. And not all red flags are obvious. Some of them are subtle. A yellow flag, for example, could be, someone keeps cutting you off every time you're talking. There's a pattern of them cutting them off as though they don't want to hear your opinion. And so these things you want to address, you don't want to ignore. Now, this person could have a condition. There are some people that have processing problems where they just they cut you off because they're processing things. They're afraid they're going to forget. But this is still something they can work on. These are areas they can work on. We don't want to use things as an excuse to the point that we're not working on self-development. And so if you don't speak up and say something about these things, they can travel with you throughout your relationship. Red flags, this could be someone keeping tabs on you. I've mentioned this before in other videos. Possessiveness, trying to isolate you from your family, extreme behaviors of anger or physical violence. Obviously, those are in your face, but some can be quite subtle. And I notice that people, if they have difficulty with boundaries in their life in general, they have boundary problems, placing boundaries at their job. They have problems placing boundaries in their friendship circles, at their church, etc. Whatever it is, they haven't quite gotten the memo about healthy boundaries. Just like a house has doors and windows, the windows can be opened, but they can be closed and shut. They can let in light, or you can shut the shutters or the shade. Doors can be opened and closed, okay? Doors have locks because there are boundaries all over the world. Wherever we go, there are property boundaries. There are boundaries in terms of hours of operation for a business. Boundaries are everywhere. So people are not strangers to boundaries. However, if you are engaging with someone who is violating your boundaries, it's not as though they're not aware that they exist, because they have to engage in boundaries since they were children. Since when you were a child and you had to be told, stand in a single file line, don't talk out of turn, raise your hand first, turn in your paper in an orderly fashion, don't look at other people's paper. We learn this is an example of, we learn these things very early. So make no mistake, whether you're dating or not, if you see that someone is violating your boundary and they're acting as though they're not aware of it, you have to say something. You have to speak up. Okay, you have to address it and give that person time to create a pattern, a consistency of change. Because I hear it across the board. There are no red flags. I didn't see any red flags, Leanne. It just popped up overnight. I don't know why this person acted this way. No, you saw them. You ignored them. Don't ignore boundaries. Now, that couple that, was many years ago that I was brought to mind when I was talking to my colleague, they got there very early. I'm sure she saw signs of some difficulties with this person, but it's not only his reaction to her, it's what she accepted. And sometimes we accept behaviors because they've been normalized. We've been socialized to accept that because of our, what was modeled for us in our family unit. Okay, so these are areas that if you reflect on them, you can start developing that core self-worth and healing some areas that may put you in positions where you're afraid to put down boundaries. You have the right to place boundaries. This is your life. And if you're choosing to date and spend the rest of your life with someone, you want to make sure you nip these areas in the bud quite early. I can't say it enough. I've said it in other videos, but it's important to mention again. There are new people here. They may not have seen those videos yet. Welcome. Welcome to everybody who's here. And if you have questions about your unique circumstance, please feel free to message me, or you can leave a comment, of course. Okay, I'm here about healthy relationships. Obviously, I'm a Christian woman, so I'm going to, surround my platform supporting Christian women. But at the core of this is about healthy relationships, so anyone could benefit from this. Start working on your boundaries. And if anybody listening to this is like that poor young lady in that elevator that was begging for a hug, you're not ready to date. Okay, work on building self-esteem, healing, working on attachment challenges, working on trauma. Work on those things before you start to date, lest you bring or invite someone, some circumstance that is emotionally debilitating and unhealthy into your life, possibly into marriage and into parenthood, creating generational trauma. All right. Gotta go. Ciao.